We're gonna start. We're gonna start in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Test, test. If y'all want to be seated, we're gonna start in 1 minute. I don't hear it. Can y'all hear me? We're gonna start in 1 minute. Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so we haven't had that in a minute, so that's... Sorry about that. So, we'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. I apologize for the feedback. Thanks for everybody for coming out. I was actually just telling a few people for the first time ever, I'm usually not nervous, and all of a sudden I'm nervous tonight, so it's weird for me. But we're going to start with our invocation and pledge. So if y'all bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, we come to you tonight as neighbors, as friends, and as a city and town that truly believes that we all have the best interest for what we all seek. We want your guidance. We want your hand to come down and lead us to the answers that we know you will provide. The paths that we go on are for you to lead us there, and the destination we know you'll be there waiting. It is in your name we pray. Amen. The pledges, we'll do the American flag first. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. God bless Texas. All right. So with that, we will have rules of decorum. So the decorum is just, we have to remember we have to be kind to one another. We have to be respectful to the people who are speaking. There will be a point tonight where there will be questions and answers. And when someone's asking a question, we just need to be mindful that we respect that. So with that, the first item on my agenda tonight for this town hall is a mayor's statement on the council meeting that took place on 11/12 of 2024. So people who know me know I script everything out. So thank you all for coming tonight. Those watching online at home, as the mayor, I take great pride in serving you. And with that has come a great deal of having to learn to always listen more, be humbled, be understanding, be graceful and forgiving when needed, and more so, willing to have an open heart to change. The meeting on 11/12 showed me one thing, that we can do better and we must do better. There is no one to blame on the meeting but myself. I am the mayor. I control the meeting. All the what ifs and what's nots do not matter. And for that, I apologize to the people watching and the ones in attendance, watching online, and to those that serve with me on the dais. Being a leader is not about being right. It is about doing what is right. So what is right in this? I believe it's to move forward and make sure we have a greater understanding of the rules of decorum so that in our next council meeting, we can be better, and in that we will discuss in depth so that you can hopefully keep this from happening again. Being a leader is about seeking self-improvement and knowing that you cannot stop learning and thriving to be the best you can be for the ones that have entrusted you to the office, no matter your title, being mayor or council. So with that said, I'm going to read the memorandum from our city attorney. You have that in a handout, so I'm only going to point out a few highlighted points. A mayor in a type A city presides over the meetings of the governing body. The mayor is the individual charged with running the city council meetings. The mayor is the individual tasked with recognizing speakers, entertaining motions, and making decisions on procedures in council meetings. And that is why I take accountability. Discussions on items not on the agenda is potential violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act by participants. The Attorney General has opined that this act does not grant a member of the public the right to address a governmental body both before and during the government body's consideration of an item. Our city has adopted public comments at a period at the beginning of the meeting, which satisfies TOMA, including comments about items that aren't on the agenda. Moreover, if the governmental body allows the public to comment on items not on the agenda, the governmental body can still apply reasonable rules regarding the number, frequency, and length of presentation, but it cannot discriminate against speakers. In conclusion, our city attorney wrote, I have been asked by multiple individuals on both sides of the disagreements, which occurred on the 12th, if there were any TOMA violations. While all the individuals agreed the meeting could have gone more smoothly and with slightly less angst, none asserted TOMA violations, which is why I presume the questions were propounded to me. Applying the principles above, while they may have been a threat of a violation, where there may have been a threat of a violation, I did not observe one. While the council and public did occasionally exchange pleasantries, and while probably not the best approach, there was no deliberation by council and no discussion of items not on the agenda. The danger of having the public make comments outside of the public comments section of the agenda is there will be a discussion and action potentially on items not on the agenda. It seemed to me all the comments were of items on the agenda. Further, the mayor is the individual solely charged with the conduct of the meeting, which I took accountability for. At no point did I see the mayor favor one speaker over another, cut off one speaker, but then let another continue on, or in any way treat any speaker differently than any other speaker. This is paramount due to the process and something a court would look at. The mayor let speakers finish and even in rebut on occasion. And from what I could observe, went out of his way to make sure everyone who wanted to speak was given the opportunity. Not that I saw an error, but if one were to err, it would be to give the public too much of an opportunity to speak. The mayor's role is not to control every breath of every person in a meeting. It is to keep the meeting running smooth and in an orderly fashion. Although it may have gotten slightly warmed in the room, at no point did the law enforcement official present need to step in to maintain order. In general, there are two ways to approach an issue: consistent or inconsistent. The inconsistent approach is one which would put the city in danger of legal exposure. A consistent approach shrinks that level, potentially the liability, to a staggeringly lower level. From what I observed, the mayor applied a consistent approach to all those in attendance. That's from our city attorney. I still want to echo, I take accountability. So with that, that will conclude 4.1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to merge 4.2 and 4.3 because I believe they can kind of tie in together with one another. So again, indulge me as I read. This will keep me on track as well. Folks, so when I read stuff, I actually read it as I say it. Folks, I am going to merge these two because they run so closely with one another. Since taking on the role of mayor in May, we have had many issues face the city. Storms that came in and caused damage to power lines and homes being without power, in which I stayed in constant contact with Encore, and after years of hope for vegetation trimming, it actually began. The hope is in the next storm season, these homes that are predominantly impacted with power outages will not have to face them. A box was removed from the hazard of Chisholm Crossing. Speaking of Chisholm Crossing, we all recall the dam issue, no pun intended, where myself and several council members worked together to monitor alongside our fire department the issues on the dam, Commissioner's Court, and other agencies. This is still continuing on as I still talk with Commissioner Stacy and the Commissioner's Court to make sure that this item is not forgotten. I still visit the dam from time to time, and I update it with pictures. I look at the cracks, and I see where we're at on that so I can understand where we'll be when the storms come back. We work together with CWD in a storm cleanup. Why do I bring all this up? Simply put, we can work together. A choice was made somewhere along the way that we cannot. Again, as the mayor, I will own that. It doesn't matter if I offer to sit down with the council member or not, I still need to find a way to do more. And that I will lean in my faith and prayer to have that guidance so that I can get an understanding of that position that maybe they hold. Because maybe if we're on path E, as I always say, what was wrong with A, B, C, and D? Which brings us to the water. RCH heard the calling of many with the meter changes, myself included. I would say I was daily talking with RCH on this matter, as it was a concern to see many residents concerned about the billing. After many discussions, RCH agreed at a cost to them to bring in a third party to do the testing of 150 random meters out of 2,500 that had been placed. In this test phase, all performed well but one, and that one was actually not reading correctly in favor to the customer, and it was replaced. Another concern was billing. I was taking calls by phone, email, text, messenger, again, working daily with RCH to help resolve these issues and matters. With that, up to 100 customers that requested adjustments with a one-time per year leak adjustment policy, many were granted. There have been several other concerns that I'm sure our council members have looked into as well. But at the end of the day, my goal is to work alongside RCH in these matters because they concern the public. By doing this, it allows us to remain good neighbors and help one another. This practice is good in anything. One of the factors that also came up during the stages of water restrictions is that there is the movement from RCH to have a direct connection with North Texas, which would eliminate the need of a water contract with Rockwall. Remember, Rockwall wants all parties off this system so that they can better address the needs of their own city. With this connection came a loan from RCH. Let's discuss this loan and maybe address some of the misinformation about it. So the city has a stance that the loan will encumber city property in Sonoma Verde, more or less the pipes as collateral. Let me say it like this. If I want to go and get a loan, I can't use your home as the collateral. I think we would all agree. The bank will always want to see that I own the property and I put it up as collateral. The co-bank loan with RCH is no different. To have funded this loan, the bank would have had to be satisfied that the assets pledged by RCH belong to them. That loan has been funded. So that tells me that it met the criteria. This is not me talking or RCH talking. This is the bank approving the loan. So you don't have to believe me. You don't even have to believe Mr. Naylor. The fact that CoBank funded the loan again shows it was satisfied that the collateral pledged belonged to RCH and met the federal financial standards. This is important. It met the standards of the bank, which is what is owned by RCH. The other concern of late was contract being canceled out by the city with RCH to provide water to Sonoma Verde residents. Let's talk about some of that. For one, when you go from what Sonoma Verde is now getting currently, along with all customers of RCH, you are retail. Why is that important? Because it navigates the gallons per connection that is required. So for instance, currently, in retail, that number is 0.6 gallons per connection. If you go to wholesale with Sonoma Verde, which is what is being proposed, then that would then go to a 2.5 gallon per connection. I am not a math whiz, so if you take the math, this would be an increase for phases 3 and 5. So the 3 and 5 that's come up many times in discussion, let me mark my place. It would be 700,000 gallons for phases 3 and 5. The current contract by Blackland Water Supply Company would put them at 1.8 million gallons per day when they currently by contract get 1.9, which in essence would put them in the same boat that I would argue RCH is in, and would not be fair to the customer base in Blackland Water Supply Company. If these same wholesale numbers were used again for all of Sonoma Verde, that math would come out to 2.9 million per day, far exceeding the amount coming from either entity. Because again, it would be wholesale, and it has a different requirement than retail. This would also, and this is a TCEQ requirement, this would also be a cost that Sonoma Verde would have to bring in a storage tank, a pump, pressure system meter on each connection with the vault. This would be roughly $2.5 million just to get that started for Sonoma Verde. And the numbers also still not support the needed water requirements. So at that point, it becomes almost a moot point because you still don't have the amount of water coming from either entity to supply that. We should never, in the absence of information, assume a worst-case scenario. This brings us to CCNs. What is a CCN? It's a Certificate of Convenience and Necessity. Well, who has a CCN? Blackland, High Point, and RCH. The city does not. The reason the city is involved with Sonoma Verde is because it is by contract, as Sonoma Verde doesn't have a CCN. This is why Sonoma Verde is the one that is being talked about in all of this, and the ones that are at the most risk with rate increases if there were to be a change, which would also indirectly impact the rest of the customer base of RCH, because there would be fewer members online now. The bottom line, my opinion, it behooves the city to work with RCH, create a partnership that allows us to be a cohesive unit in caring for the people we serve. That is 4.2 and 4.3. We're going to have questions at the very end, so if y'all are writing them down, we're way ahead of schedule. I was thinking this was going to take me an hour to talk. Okay, the last one is, are we on 4.4? Okay, thank you. Mayor update on area water providers. When the elections were over, we reevaluated the water committee, and I asked Councilmember Mike Easter to be a part of it. My task at that point was, how can we find 1 million gallons a day for summer of 2025? June 1st, September 1st to be exact. That was the ask, 3 months. I sat in a few meetings where that was the topic. It was that with Rockwall and High Point, and even when I spoke with Blackland Water Supply Company, I asked the same questions. Somewhere along the way, the target shifted from finding more water for the immediate relief to where we are today. But to keep talking about how we got here is not going to solve anything. To me, it is simple. We sit down, we refocus, and we realign and come back to the table as a unit that wants to work together for the citizens we serve. It is not necessarily about always agreeing or being right. It is about the purpose of the oath of office to serve the people. We all have our fundamental beliefs that will push us to follow our hearts, and I will not fault that in anybody, as I do the same. But it is paramount that we must be willing to disagree and still be kind, respectful, and find ways to work together. Anything else will send the message that we are not functioning as a unit, and that is always going to result in a disservice to you. Not to any of us on the dais, and not any of us on the dais should be okay with that. So where are we at? High Point in this has now sent a letter asking us to cease and desist and speaking about them on the dais, and more so, even reaching out to them. Rockwall will always be happy to discuss options and find ways to help, but we want all parties present in that discussion, i.e. mayor, council, and any other person designated to discuss water. But be mindful, Rockwall is looking for RCH and others to be off the system. The goal with Rockwall is to work with them and RCH in finding a way to get more water for summer of 2025 during that above-mentioned time frame. Blackland Water Supply Company board president and myself spoke, and we have agreed that we have to be willing to always be neighborly, and while Blackland Water Supply Company will listen, they are not here to interfere with RCH in the city. I provided you the email so that you can see from the board president himself. Where does this leave us? Folks, apologize, let me back up one. The city of Terrell was also spoken with on this. The city of Terrell said it was basically we would have to pay for it if we wanted to go down that route. I think it was 8 miles of pipe and the take point, which I think we estimated at about 20 to 25 million. Again, it's an estimation. Don't know if it's true because we obviously didn't do any mapping, engineering studies. It was just one meeting, I believe. So where does this leave us? Folks, simply put, find a way to work with RCH. Find a way to make sure you get safe, potable water and plenty of it so you can care for your foundations and vegetation and fill your swimming pool if you have one. Working together is always going to take us farther than working against one another. So with that, we will open it up for questions. However, if I do not know the answer to the question, I will write it down and I will make a video in the spirit of being transparent, and I will post all the questions that I can't answer so that everyone can see what those answers would be. I am not a person who tries to fake an answer or come up with one or one on the fly. If I don't know, I will simply tell you I don't know that, but I will do my best to find out. You also have with you a copy of the letter from High Point so that you can see, that, no one wants to talk to us right now. Well, maybe that's not a correct statement. People want to talk. We just have to do it the right way. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. I have a microphone. So what I will do is I'll bring it to the first person who has a question, and after that, we'll try to do the pass around thing. So 1 second. Oh, you got it. Thanks, John.
I have 16 questions.
Oh, great. Awesome. You may have to turn it on. Is it on? Is it on? Okay. Anyone questions? Awesome. Have a great night. No, does anybody have any questions? It was a lot of information. We're here till 8, so I'll be happy to go home early. Oh. It only takes one, then 20 more will come. I've learned this.
Hi, I'm John Oram. I live in Sonoma Verde. This isn't really a question, Mayor. It's a statement. So I voted for you. I evaluated you and the other candidate, and I placed my confidence in you because I thought the biggest issue, I don't really get involved in like all the other stuff, but the water thing is hitting all of us. So I felt confident after meeting you, talking with you, that you were the right person to solve this problem and also to run the other day-to-day activities of being the mayor of this county. My understanding is that the 4 council members, 2 behind me, I think, who are opposing you on this matter, aligned themselves with the other candidate for the mayor. I don't know. Is that true?
So, just as a point of order, we're under advice by the city attorney to not answer any questions.
Okay.
That breaks quorum rules.
That's fine. I'll assume you did. Yeah. Okay. So I think I talk for a lot of people who wanted you particularly to solve this problem, and I think you've been doing that. I understand the other 4 have concerns, fine, but we've given them a strong message in voting for you, and electing you, and for supporting you after the fact that we want to go with your proposal, your vision. And so I worked for a large corporation. We always had disagreements. We get into meetings, there'd be a group want to do it this way, group want to do it this way. We would talk it out, and at the end of the day, it was, we're going to do this, and those of you who don't agree, you get on board now, because we're going this way, and we're going to get this done. Otherwise, we get into a situation where nothing gets done, and everybody's fighting each other. And I think that's where we are now. What I suggest is, if you don't agree, make a statement, but go along, because we got to get this done. And I think your plan is correct, and I think it will work. Everything has risk, okay? There's no option that doesn't involve risk. So we need to get this done, and there's a mandate. So let's get it done.
Thanks, John. So I will answer the one question. My belief and the conversations that I have been able to have with the council, I don't believe they are talking with my opponent. I believe they are. I firmly believe they're not. They may have some same ideals that might align with it in some ways, but I 100% believe that they're not talking to her. And if they are, I mean, it's America. But I don't believe it. Oh, copy. Okay, understand. Next question. You know, we did talk about a lot, and I know that was a lot to absorb, and I read it. I try to do things more personable, but in ownership of things, I believe that, you know, how do I word this? While the council and I may have a disagreement here, I do believe that they have good hearts. They believe in what their purpose is, right? And it's like I said in my statement, you can't fault somebody for that. I don't want to be faulted because I have a belief system. John echoed it just now perfectly. There is risk in everything. There's risk in their way, there's risk in my way, there's risk in everything. But I thought about something today. Gosh, I hope this is not speaking out of turn. Where's Hollow when you need them? You know, we just had some elections in November. And I remember one of the ones that was running was the state HD 33 election. And it came down to Justin Holland and Katrina Pearson. And I remember many people made the statement that the reason they voted for Katrina is because Justin stopped listening to the people. I know for a fact the 4 on the council supported Katrina per their endorsements. I mean, so to me, it's just ideology is you supported something that you believed in there because you believe you have to listen to the people. My ask is to echo John again. Thanks for being here, John. Let's make the statements and then let's get on board together and move together as a unit. And in that, course correct me, hold me accountable. If you see something that I could have done better, I want my counsel to say, hey, more to the right, more to the left. Because I think that's healthy. You know, Paul, I apologize, I'm going to say, Paul came by the office today. Is it okay? Yep. Yeah. But he said hi, you know, he just said hi. He came in and the first thing he said to me was, be nice tonight. And I told him I just released a video like 10 minutes before you got here. And in my video, I made it very clear that this is not an attack on my city staff. This is not an attack on my council, because that would not be leadership, right? And that would not be leadership for me. That would not be leadership for them. But then Paul left me a voicemail saying that he missed talking to me, missed us, like being able to just have these conversations. And I wrote him back and I said, I love you, brother. Miss him too. Although I don't like eating at La Madeleine, but that's his favorite place. But the point to that is he sees that need that it's gotten to a point that we have to, we work for y'all. At the end of the day, we work for y'all. This is me talking, but it's your voice. I mean, if I say something out of turn, I want those emails. I want those phone calls. So I'm going to keep plugging away. And in that, I am going to hold RCH accountable. And I do. If anyone would like, the emails are public record. You can request them. You will see the numerous emails that I send to RCH saying, what's going on with this? Why is this bill like this? what's going on with this gentleman's meter? Robin, I need you to go check on this one. And the bottom line is, folks, they don't have to answer to me at all. They can tell me to pound sand, but they don't, because we have a common goal to try to keep things operating. So I'll stop jabbering. Oh, you got one? Softballs.
Softballs, easy ones. I don't know if this one's gonna be easy. You might be angry with me next Monday at coffee. I'm kind of concerned, and I don't fault you. I just see there's a vote that just keeps happening, and that's just observation. 4-2 or 4-1. I'm pretty sure this water thing is gonna get worked out, no matter how painful it is, whether it goes through the courts or it gets solved in here. It's gonna get worked out. The concern I have is, what is the precedent we're setting for businesses? I'm in the investment world. I'm not investing in this town right now. We can just cancel contracts at will. That sets a scary precedence for business. I don't want to invest in this community. So the concern I have is, this is going to get solved. What does it look like after? And do you have any thoughts on the business environment now? Has this affected it? And do you have any thoughts on after, on maybe repairing our image with business?
Yeah, you're canceled for coffee. No, in all honesty, it does have an impact. But I can tell you, I do stay in contact with, after every council meeting, I usually follow up with a few of the commercial developers that are looking to do business at 205 and 550. One of them is Brookshire's. I always follow up with them after every council meeting. Mr. Barry with one firm, follow up with him. The Whittles, not so much, but I love putting people on the spot. My P&Z chair has a good relationship, and so he helps maintain a lot of those commercial business type relationships. And because of that, Mark is with me in a lot of these type of conversations. We are trying to keep them healthy because they are a concern. It does set a precedent. They see those things, and I get phone calls. They've texted me right after council meetings because they watch. One thing I've learned is businesses talk to businesses. Even if one's not watching, the one that is calls, and then there's a domino effect. There was a meeting we had here where it was heavy on one of the commercial developers. The next morning, well, that night I had a text message immediately, and then the next morning I had 2 phone calls. So you're right, it does set a precedent, but it doesn't mean we can't turn things around, right? I mean, we can still do that. We have that control. I mean, we always have a choice every morning we wake up. So I will make sure I keep plugging away, and I lean on Mark to help me with that, with P&Z on the commercial stuff. So, sorry, Mark. And then Lorna also. Did you remember it?
I did.
Well, then we'll get you now.
Thank you. I've never used a mic. So this follows his question, but I was concerned about the nexus between solving this current problem to make sure that the homes already here and businesses have water. And the next step, which is how is the city going to deal with the continuing interest in developing land, and how do you plan for where that water is going to come from? We haven't even solved this yet. Or do we limit growth?
Well, so, man, that's a tough one. So, in the state of Texas, or I probably would say any state in the U.S., you have landowner rights, right? So when someone owns land, you can't really say it'd be like me coming to your house and saying what you can do. So as far as the land goes, if a developer comes, we have to find our ways to work with them so it's done correctly, right? Plus, when you're a good neighbor like that, you do get you build a relationship. So when you go back to talk to the developer, then you're able to maybe get some things aligned. A prime example of that was one of the most heated debates that I remember walking into on council. But the previous council, as I later found out, worked really hard to take one development that was a residential one that was here and got it down to here. And that was because they built a relationship and they kept going back to talking. As far as the second part of your question with water, so a lot of the development that is coming, it's set out. So I'll just bounce off. Sonoma Verde just had a town hall with their developer and their development team. And even in his development plan, he already knows what Blackland's going to be at their stages, and RCH is going to be at their stages for their respective CCNs. And so he already knows, and even assured the community that wouldn't be a strain, right? So again, that is open dialogue and communication with that developer. He understands and knows, and so he's worked his way, right? With the commercial, most of the stuff that's coming on the commercial side, I would venture to say, if RCH is online with their direct connect, then there'll be plenty on that one as well. And I would say also, I had a question the other day, so I'm going to throw one out there for you, is the pressure. I know a lot of people talk about the water pressure. When that is done on the other end, that will help with the pressure situation as well. So, did that answer?
Sort of.
Well, let me help you out. Tell me what it didn't.
So I'm just thinking about as development happens,
Okay.
you're telling, I understand that someone buys the land and so they want the opportunity, believe me, I talk about it.
But the people online.
I don't talk about that. I thought, just a second. So you own the land and you want to be able to develop it.
Mhm.
But does the city have a requirement to say, just because you want to develop it, we have to provide you with exactly the amount of water for the number of homes that you build? Or what happens? I don't understand this whole water.
Right. So we don't own the CCN, right? So since we don't own the CCN, the certificate of convenience and necessity that I talked about. So basically, to provide that will serve letter, right? So RCH by law has to provide water, right? I mean, they're in that CCN, they're developing, and they have to do it. So we, as a city, can't really do a moratorium. I know we get that a lot. That's not always the best idea. Heath did one. I've seen other cities do it, but we don't own that utility to be able to do it, right? What we were able to do after the elections, and actually prior to the elections, RCH, off of our checklist, was not issuing any will serve letters, new will serve letters. So if there was already a development that had started and it was under contract, and a lot of these developments actually go back a few years before they actually start. Would that be a correct, Mr. David? Yeah. So a lot of times, a lot of people are like, oh, it's a new one. It may have started 3 or 4 years ago, and it's just now getting there. So they have to honor that, right? So you can't really all of a sudden say no, because now then they can sue RCH. So it creates a bad thing. I mean, I wish we could come in and say, hey, time out for 6 months. But even then, at the end of 6 months, what did you solve? You really, nothing. I mean, you'd have to stop it for probably 6 years to really make an impact.
Connect is a huge.
It is a huge thing. It is huge. This direct connect changes the ball game for the amount of water. It's 13.1 millions of gallons of water per day is what it's up to, and they have it set in their contract by stages. So it's not like on day one they're going to get 13.1, because then they would have more than they need, right? So it's going to be in stages. They know exactly how much they're going to ask for at this one, and then as it progresses, they go back and get more. It's not like they have to go through the whole process again, but they just have to make sure they get the request in and stuff. But
So looking out for 10 years, are we?
this is a 20-year plan. 20-year plan.
Okay, so we know that for 20 years, things should go smoothly, barring.
Goes back to the risk, right? You hope that you assessed everything correctly. Yeah. Does that help it?
Yeah, I'll be really
Nope,
old.
good.
I'll be really old in 20 years.
You know, I had someone say to me today, some of us may not be around, so. No.
I'm Gary Nickel, 612 Kentwood. What I think we should do has changed somewhat over the last year and a half or two, and it's not important what I think, but what I'm curious about is where we stand now. I understand your position, but I'm not clear yet on what RCH and the advocates that write frequently on Facebook seem to have an opposing position. I understand that the council members present are advised not to speak, but is there someone here who can speak for the other side that's in opposition to your plan or whatever you're proposing that could explain to me where we are and how far apart things are, just so I understand what the obstacle is?
I wouldn't know how to answer that one, Gary. Is there anyone that has, or just maybe wants to play devil's advocate even, you know, just maybe understands that? Okay. Well, yeah. And I definitely can't speak for RCH, right? And I can tell you, I've learned a lot in the year and a half to 2 years to not try to be their spokesperson. And so now I just try to stick with what I do know and what is factual, and I don't want to try to assume something for RCH, and I certainly don't want to try to assume something for the council. Yeah, I know, and I unfortunately I don't know I don't know the council's plan either. So, Lorna.
This is one you may not know the answer to either because it's not your area of responsibility.
Yes, ma'am.
But as you know, there's been Sonoma Verde online for an elementary school for a very long time. The school district determines where those schools go, not the city. However, I had heard rumors that the school district was reluctant to put a school at Sonoma Verde because of the water. And I wondered if you as the mayor had heard anything that could lend truth or false to that statement.
That's actually a really good question. Myself, I've had numerous one-on-one conversations with the school district, and in particular JJ Villarreal or Dr. Villarreal. During the tour, I believe myself, Mayor Pro Tem, and Councilmember Day was there. Some talk, not a lot because it was a tour. Then there was a private tour that we had where we were able to kind of dive in a little bit more on that towards the end. And all three of us in that walkthrough assured him that water wasn't an issue. And that was all three of us there. Because I want to say that was probably May or June when we did that. And we assured Dr. Villarreal, based off of what we saw from RCH coming, that he would be fine because the time frame in which he would be opening the school was their fiscal year of 27, which is technically 26. I'm never good with fiscal years, so, but I think it was October 26. Okay. Yeah, so it would have broke ground October 26, and which would have still been fine, even whichever way the plan would have gone, because I think any company would have been in that time frame.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whew. Softball answers and questions, please. Anybody with it? Mr. Faddick.
Yeah, Bob Fadick, 1156 Little Lorna. In lieu of all the revelation from High Point, Blackland, what's the amount of money the city's put out to attorneys to fight all this? And then on top of all that, my other part of this question is there any way that these 4 council members can sit down with you and reach across the aisle and come to an agreement finally?
Well, so I'll answer it. I think you had two questions there, so the second one we'll answer first. Absolutely. The council, you know, they are good guys. They have good hearts, right? Just because we don't agree doesn't make them a bad person. You know, just because I don't agree with them. I know, I'm just me. See, this is why I should have a script. But my point is they all have a vision, and that's the vision they believe in, right? And I have mine. I do hope they come and talk to me again. Like I said, Paul reached out to me today. I think we're going to set up a La Madeleine. Why we can't go to Chick-fil-A, but we'll probably hit La Madeleine or something like that. And you know, and that's the start, right? Because you got to have a start. The other part of your question, gosh, can you just remind me real quick? Oh, money. So, well, I don't want, yeah. So I don't want to go back to when it first started. So, because to go back when it first started, just, you know, drive windshield. So I can tell you from since this has all began, I posted it the other day. I think it was like 13,000. I spoke with Emily Rogers today via email, who is our water attorney, and she was getting the next bill for me in line. I think this one's going to be a little bit more from what I've seen. I don't have that number yet, but there's been a lot more going on, obviously. So as soon as I have it, I'll have it redacted, and once it's redacted, you know, it's for the public to see. So hopefully we'll have that by the end of this week. Anybody else? What happened to John? We lost our mic man. Oh, Rich Dean's taking it over.
Can we go on water-related questions? Or not questions, shout-outs. My name is Kevin Carson, and I just wanted to thank the mayor publicly. We've had a lot of power outages in our subdivision, and we even had a fire in our tree line this spring. And the mayor stayed on Encore constantly until they came out a couple of weeks ago. And I know it was difficult working with them, but Encore went through the tree lines and cleaned things up that should have been done previously. And I know that took a lot of effort. And I won't go into all the details, but I know it was hard. So I want to thank the mayor for that.
Thanks, Kevin. I actually closed that deal at TML. All of the Encore people were down there, and I was able to close that, finally getting them out there. And we got bumped up because there were so many more important people at TML, so I had a bigger audience. And so obviously a bigger audience, a little more important people. And they told me right there, you're number one on the priority list now. And as you saw, I think you sent me a message that morning or something saying, hey, there's some Encore cars here. And I'm like, good. I think they're going to be cutting. And they did. And I think they're still at it. I think there's still a couple of phases they're going to work it through from my contacts with them. But my ask of them was to try to get it done before the next storm season. With that, my goal is for Glen Acres and the Chisholm crossing on this side to not be affected. And obviously we won't know until the storms hit again, but I honestly hope I don't have any text messages from Chisholm Crossing and Glen Acres in the next storm season, unless it's Lorna making me one of them breakfast sandwiches. Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got 3 questions for you. First of all, I speak from some experience. I'm a California immigrant, 3 years, and I ran a water company for 40 years in California. So it was a city company, so I'm not good on private water company, but here's my question. First question is the billing. The new meters that RCH installed, there's a continuous billing every billing period for that meter. Now, I don't think meters cost that much money, so the question is, why are we paying every billing period $25 for the meter installation? That's question number 1. You want to go one at a time, or you want
Sure, that'll make it easy. So again, I can't answer for RCH on that one, but I can tell you, I believe you have a meter fee on your electric meter as well as your gas meter. I don't see the water meter billing falling off, no different than any of the other utilities that we all pay a meter fee on. They may have it listed different on their billing. Again, I don't want to try to speak for them, but if you want, I will ask RCH on that, but I think it's probably going to stay.
Well, if that's the answer they're going to give you, I have a counter for you. In California, we installed these meters 20 years ago. These automatic meter reading meters, it's a 20-year-old project. The revenue from those new meters paid for that whole affair. There was no charge to the customers. I had 200,000 customers. So there was no charge to them for the installation.
Yeah, Mike, that would be an RCH, and plus, it's not. If it were me, it's not an apple to an apple. You have a rural water utility, and you have a 200,000 population. So it's probably a little, and it's depending on how they wrote it up. Again, that's an assumption, so I'm not speaking of fact. Yeah.
They tell you that same thing. If you want to talk to me, I'll be glad to talk.
If you want, I mean, I know exactly where you live. I can pass your contact over to Robin. If you're all right with it, I'll pass it over to Robin, and then I'm gonna total up your house tonight. He's my neighbor, by the way.
Question number 2. Traditionally, when you have new development, we're kind of proactive in infrastructure, water mains, drainage, sewer. That doesn't occur here. Can you explain how development works here? We have a lot of development in Sonoma Verde, where I live, and all the new homes coming up, yet we're short of water. So I hear that some of the new customers who come in to buy a home are being told by someone, don't buy a house here because there's no water.
Well, so I mean, I can't speak for what somebody's telling somebody. It goes back to what I kind of asked for a nod from a person in the audience tonight. You know, phases 3 and 5 of Sonoma Verde were started years ago, right? So you can't tell those folks, the developer of Sonoma Verde, well, things have changed, so we're not going to do that, right? So it's up to the water company, which is RCH, to figure out how to do that. And that's just where that lies. There's no way I could try to answer that with, I mean, I will definitely tell Robin to reach out to you, though. Robin Mayo is the general manager of RCH, by the way.
Third question, League Road, 139 acres on League Road. Is it true that it's possibly sold for development?
The 139 acres on League Road. So that's a developer. Yeah. So one thing I've learned a lot of things, and well, first of all, I don't know the 100% answer on this one, right? So I'm not going to try to come up with one. But I think from what I've seen in my time here is a lot of times they will have a contract in waiting as they're waiting to see what gets approved through processes. So where they may not have purchased the land, sometimes it's just holding to make sure they can get for their investors. Gosh, I hope I'm explaining that right. Am I close? Not close, close, close. So I'm close. So because, you know, if you were an investor or a developer and you buy this, we'll say hypothetical 200 acres of land and you want to build 100 homes on it, you're not going to close on that until you have all your I's dotted and T's crossed, because your investor is now owns the land. So I want to say maybe it's a contract in waiting, kind of like when you sell a home. Gosh, I hope I'm explaining this right. They're doing due diligence. Thanks, Lorna. Appreciate it. But yeah, those are all hard questions that unfortunately it's a different entity that would have to answer those. 2 from RCH and 1 from the Sonoma Verde developer. And reach out to Christy at Sonoma Verde.
Last question. Allocation.
That's 4. You said 3. Again, that's going to see. I can't speak for RCH. I can only speak for the city. That's an RCH question, but I will have Robin reach out to you for sure. And I would venture to say he's probably watching tonight, but I will definitely have him reach out. I'm writing it down, Mike.
My name is Deborah Jackson. Some of you may know me. My house was struck by lightning 2 years ago.
Sonoma Verde?
I walked out of there with the firemen in my slippers.
Was that the one in Sonoma Verde?
The Sienna Court, right by Donald's house.
Oh, I do remember that, yes.
The fires were, my neighbor James pounded because it was like pre-dawn
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And the sonic boom was in my living room. Instant level 2 concussion according to the doctors and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So the fire started hopping across my roof, and I ran to Donald's house yelling for his wife, Trisha, because I thought it was going to jump in their house. Anyway, Trisha and Donald have been very helpful to me, letting me use their living room as my war room with all things going on. But the point I want to make is I've been out of pocket for 2 years. I just took 18 months to get my house back. And I want to
welcome
help
back.
you, and if you need me to do research for you, to volunteer something, this is the biggest asset I've got going here, and it's got water problems and roadway problems and all kinds of stuff. Because I was literally out of the loop because I was hit by the lightning as well. So I was kind of like supposed to be dead, but I'm not. So I want to get back involved in all this.
Wow. When we're done tonight, if you can, just come and give me your phone number. I'll definitely reach out to you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for offering that. Yeah, I didn't know Don did that. That's a good character. He's got good heart.
Hi, so I'm Lidlin Sadki. I live on Arza Lane in Sonoma Verde. And I've been here about 2 years now, and I'm not very well versed in city management and, but I come from another town where we had droughts and we had water issues also, not to that extent though. But there was one thing that I've seen around cities around us that were growing, and I think there is one thing here, when I see Rockwall and people from Rockwall, like they're all like, they want to stop the growth, and I think sometimes it's not realistic because we're going to grow, and the thing is not a matter of if, but when and how. And so I want to say first that I was very impressed when I saw you coming in your new function and putting that committee or, to plan ahead and think about the growth and the development. That was really great. So coming to my question is, we're talking about water and RCH and everything. It's way above my head of understanding all the situation here. But one thing I've never heard in those conversations is looking at an option where we have two water systems. One is for like water for us to drink and wash or whatever, and then another one for all the gardening and all the things where we don't need pure water. And because I've seen that in some cities, and it worked really well, and it alleviated a lot of those issues. So I was just curious to know if that thought had been shared at all or discussed, or we're way too far from discussing this at this point.
Well, so one thing I have learned on, gosh, I hope I answer this one right also, and I may have to get back with you on it, so I'm going to try to answer it best I can with my limited knowledge. I don't think, so if a water company owns that CCN, Sonoma Verde is very different though, okay? Sonoma Verde is contracted, so since Sonoma Verde is contracted, the contract right now, as we have all seen, RCH is that contract to provide that water to Sonoma Verde, right? So that's a contract. If it was outside of that Sonoma Verde and it's that CCN, somebody cannot just put water into that CCN unless there's an agreement made. Prime example, in our city, there is one of those agreements. Chisholm Crossing would technically be, as well as the development at not Sonoma Verde, the development at 205 and 550 for commercial, that would be High Point's CCN by mapping. But their pipe ends here at the City Hall Fire Department area, which they'll also do across the street. Well, RCH had piping there, so RCH and High Point entered into an agreement that RCH will just provide the water there, right? So they came up with their own agreement. But typically speaking, no one's going to go into someone else's CCN. In reference to the email I put out tonight for a handout from Jason over at Blackland, they have no desire to go after someone else's CCN. No other water company really wants to do that. So I will say this, a friend of mine, Eric, brought to my attention, and there's a person in Sonoma Verde, I can't think of how he did it, but he's got these huge, he's got these huge tanks that capture water. He had, going into summertime, 18,000 gallons of water. He watered his garden, yard, and foundation for 3 months. So what I would think would be a really cool idea, I don't know if it's legally possible, but it would be something I would love to talk with my council about, to challenge them to developers who have home builders wanting to come in, is find a way to add one of that into the requirement. If you're going to build a house, put in that tank. Maybe it's just a 6,000 gallon tank, but what could that do for your garden? And it's recycling rainwater. Don't know if you can legally force them to do it, but gosh, what a good idea that would be for any home developer coming into our community to see the problem we have and say, you know what, I can do more too. Again, don't know if it can be required, but maybe it's something we can talk about. Did that help? Did I answer that right? I don't like to leave people thinking if I didn't answer your question. I apologize.
No, it does. Again, I said, I'm not a specialist. I don't understand how it works. But I just, if it's not the city, I can see the city having, like you just said, some kind of a duty to ask and say, can you think about it or come up with a solution as you build this new community, or
yeah.
And then the water companies, RCH or wherever, right, and kind of make them accountable to think about it. Think about not just pure water, drinkable water for everything, but coming up with 2 separate systems. So at least, I'm sure the water that you can use to go for your garden or whatever can be cheaper and find in other places. And I know it requires different piping systems or whatever, so why don't we draw a line in the sand and just say, okay, what is built the way it is, but then the future communities that we build, we think about having those 2 water systems to try to alleviate the problems for the future.
Yeah, it's one I wrote down, so it's good. I don't have that full answer, but I'll see what I can come up with. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
It's Karen McDonald, and I apologize, we came in late, so if you've already said something to this, my bad. Just short answers, real quick, yes or no. Are we still in the contract, or have we backed out of it?
Yes, we are still in the contract.
Okay. So are our attorneys and their attorneys arguing back and forth about it all?
Probably best if we leave it at yes, the contract's still good, because there is some sort of litigation. I don't want to say something that's not correct with the city attorney not here, and that's not to say I don't want to answer your question. It's just I have to protect the interest of the city. I just don't want to misspeak on that, but I can tell you that I believe all parties, city, RCH, Sonoma Verde, are all working for the same common goal, and that is to get water to people. At the end of the day, I think if I asked for everyone to show of hands, they would all raise their hands saying, we want to work together and get more water. But anything that's legal, not that I don't want to answer you, and I apologize. I hate giving you that answer, honestly, plead the fifth, but.
So is the city council still wanting to cancel the contract?
So, I can tell you the last vote.
I know what the last vote is, so that's where we stand right now?
As of right now, the last agenda item, which was 7.1 at the last council meeting, where I asked for them to rescind it, it was voted down 4-1. So I don't know if things have changed. We will find out at the next council meeting. Maybe something gets done there. Maybe something doesn't.
So is this vote going to take place every city council meeting?
No, ma'am, because right now, oh gosh, let me think. I think I can answer this one safely. So there's a Rule 11 agreement right now, okay? So the Rule 11 agreement is basically saying business as usual type thing, that we're still working to do things and we're still working to do things. And it's public record. There was a hearing where Judge Rackow and Judge Hall have recused themselves from the case because it's too close. I think they've served on some boards with some other people. Rockwall 13 by 13, you pretty much can know everybody sometimes. And so it's been sent to a visiting Dallas judge. So with that, it's now going to probably get put into their docket system. And so that, being that it's now a visiting judge and that's their docket system, it could end up saying, well, we won't be able to look at this until, hypothetically, maybe they say April, maybe they say March, maybe they say July, right? There's no way to know because it's now out of the Rockwall Court's hand, right? That could mean that the city and all the parties, maybe they say extend the Rule 11. Maybe council just says, you know what, let's just stop and we change course. Maybe a judge comes and gives a ruling. Like there's so many different options to that dice roll. It would just, I wouldn't know that answer. My hope is we, as I stated earlier, we just find a way to work together here. And then if we,
the short
yes, ma'am.
term answer, you know, I mean, the shortest, the quickest way to work. But if that doesn't happen and this keeps going on, so as citizens, our only option really is in May.
I mean, yes, that's when your voice is heard in the elections. But to Don's point, it's going to get worked out, whether it gets worked out here, whether it gets worked out in the courts, or it gets worked out in May. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tim McDonald. How long or what's it going to take for the council and the mayor and everybody involved in this to go ahead and resolve and come together and take care of this? Why cannot it be done, or is this going to linger on until it goes to court? I mean, whatever the differences are between the two, how come they're not able to come and resolve it and meet in the middle or something?
So, again, I can't speak for them. I can speak for me. I can speak for Paul now, Councilmember Day, just because he did come by the office today and he does want to sit down and talk. So I know those two parties want to sit down and talk. But it goes back to what I said in my statement, right? I'm the mayor. I'm going to hold myself accountable to do better. So I'm going to find a way, whether it's a different way besides a singing telegram, because I won't do that. But I'm going to find a way to get in front of them and talk to them, extend that olive branch, do that peace pipe, because it is very clear, not only from here, but in the past council meetings, the people want us to talk. The people want us to work together. And I firmly believe you have men up there who can find a way to do it. John, I think he had 2 parts. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yes, you did answer your side of it. And since some of the council members are here now, and I know you're not going to be able to voice anything, but when are y'all going to come up with something to work together as a group with the mayor and the city and the citizens to solve this problem? Why do we want to continue to linger on? Or, like Karen said, does it need to be decided in May to get different people in to make the decision?
He won't be able to answer, Mr. McDonald, but I can tell you. Yeah. Yes, sir. And you know, I hope, honestly, I can tell you my prayer and my hope, and I firmly believe the next council meeting is going to be very different. I think we all learned lessons myself included, I think you'll just see a different vibe. And I hope you see a togetherness that will show that we all want to work together somehow, some way. And Mr. McDonald, you have my contact. Please follow up with me on that. I'll definitely be following up with you. Thank you. Don, get one.
Sorry, and I'm speaking out of turn here. I really am, but I'm happy to hear that you're willing to extend the olive branch, and they are. But as a community, anybody that was here the last couple of weeks, this needs to start with an apology to us. What happened 3 weeks ago is ridiculous, and I've said it on email, and I've requested it. I'm now doing it publicly. They need to apologize to the community.
Yeah, Don, I'll say it like this, and I took that accountability, and I know where you're going with that. I can tell you, from me, I am sorry. We as a council, me as the mayor, and I understand, but I hold that, right? And if they choose to apologize, then that's on them. But I can tell you, for me, I am sorry. Any other questions? I can't. Yeah, apologize. Any other questions? We can get out of here 15 minutes early.
So just to be clear, the lawsuit with Sonoma Verde, or with RCH regarding Sonoma Verde, with the city of McLendon-Chisholm suing RCH, is still continuing forward, correct?
So the city is not suing RCH. RCH is suing the city, right? So I guess
for the canceling of the contract.
For the canceling of the contract.
So
technically there has not been a cancellation, right? So technicality, there has not been a cancellation or breach as of yet, right? So had a Rule 11 or nothing been put in place prior to November 16th, that would have been the breach that day. By the Rule 11 going into place, that extended that for status business as usual type thing. Everyone agreed that we'll just do this until we get to figure things out. But the city is not actually suing anybody. It's them suing us. But to your point, it was based off of the vote, right? So
that's all still in play. The only thing that's changed is it's moved now to a visiting
judge in Dallas. Yes, that's the last brief I've got.
You're talking all this conciliatory, and that you want to work together, that they want to work together, but that's still in play, which is still costing
because
us money.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
I hear you, and I hear your heart. So then, if we don't see a change, I would say next week at the next city council meeting, that pretty much tells us where we are in this situation. Because this is ridiculous, and it needs to stop. This has been going on for years, and it's concerning that, I think since I moved here in 2017, the vitriol and the hate from different factions that have come out, the first couple of years, I wouldn't even get involved in the politics here over the fire department and everything that was going on with that. I was like, I'm just going to wait till I live here for a hot minute and kind of figure some things out for myself before I'm voting for any of these people. But we still have the same thing. And it's always talking about TOMA violations and this and that, but the only person that I've actually seen be really transparent is you. Out of the last, since I've been here since 2017, by making yourself available to people. And if you're able to get up here and to share the things you did, and I know that they cannot talk, I would like to see, I don't want to say debate, but I would like to see all parties come to the table and start showing their plans. We've heard about this water plan for a couple years now that's never materialized. That supposedly we were going to get something last meeting and we did not receive it. And I've been going back and digging through some of the comments on the RCH page of even past council members that they seem like they're privy and having meetings. And it seems like there's a heck of a lot of secret meetings going on with certain people when, I don't know, I guess us peasants still are not allowed to hear the full story. But would you be open to that, like having them and have, like I said, I don't want to use the word debate. I don't want it to be ugly, but just, I mean, like last meeting, Councilman Day kept, yelling to Sherry London, $40 million. And then I heard Councilman Dan Tucker, because she said, well, where did you get that? And he goes, well, we're assuming that because RCH won't talk to us. But the other thing, I mean, so I'm like, can we just really sit down and have some real numbers laid out? And then if all people really want to work together, then why can't we do that? It's okay not to necessarily agree on how we get somewhere, but it's the fact that it just seems like people are not being given the full information, and they should be, because we voted you guys in to represent us. But it's like we're not being heard, and which is kind of a point that you made a little bit earlier. So it's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I just echo what I've already said. Hopefully we're able to sit down and talk. I firmly believe that's going to happen. You got to always have that hope. I also feel, again, the next council meeting is going to be great. I will reach out to some of the council members as well as the city attorney and see if there's something we can put together. Maybe it is another town hall, but again, maybe things change in the next council meeting, right? So my hope is to see what happens at the next council meeting, and we'll take it from there.
Kind of what concerned me was like with the letters here from Blackland and High Point, and then we're going to terminate an agreement, and where exactly are we going here? So
I think, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, you have two of the other water providers have now made statements. They should be very clear. I read them as very clear. And so what does that do? If option A, option B are now not options, that leaves you with C, right? So like now, how do you make C work? And that's where it's at right now. So I firmly believe we'll be able to sit down and talk. Obviously, we can't all do it together, to speak on Toma, but I have a feeling some of them will reach out. I believe it. I know I'm going to reach out to every one of them, so we'll see what happens. And I will, everyone knows me, transparent. I mean, I'll let you know I reached out. Yes, sir, Tom.
Yeah, I'm Tom Ritz, otherwise known as the mouth that roars. I don't have many inhibitions left when I had a brain surgery. Now, we moved here in 2018, and first thing I noticed in the newspaper is, hey, we don't have fire coverage anymore. And that to me was when the Balcom virus struck. Now, I know. Anyway, we got a good fire department. That's gone. But it was where we got some people who wanted to take over everything, make the city bigger. We're a small city, and I don't think we should be doing everything. We don't need a we don't need a police department right now. Maybe we probably will, but not right now. Now, the previous city council spent a lot of money attempting to do a hostile takeover of RCH. Now, that was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know if that's right number, but that's what I heard.
The last number, if you took all the attorney fees and the engineering mapping contract to do the mapping for the water attorney side of it, I want to say it's like 120.
What?
120.
Okay, but a lot of money.
That's the invoices that I've been able to see.
A lot of money spent for a bunch of amateurs trying to take over a company headed by a guy who's the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation that he built from scratch. Now, I think that's a pretty stupid thing to do. And my opinion, like I say, yeah, I know. But it was 3 times they went to the state. And 3 times the state very politely said, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And turned it back to them. And finally, I think what happened, why the 4 decided to try to cancel the contract was they heard that if RCH got a certain contract with the federal government, they would not be able to be taken over. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what I heard. Well, we better cancel it right away. But you see, they didn't know what RCH was doing. RCH had already gotten the loan, so they couldn't be taken over by the city. But they're still trying. So their other thing was, now, if we can just besmirch them, then they won't get the big loans to get all the other stuff that has to be done.
Well, and I think, Tom, once we get to, let's see if we can, it's like I've been echoing tonight. We're going to reach out. I have no doubt they're going to be receptive to it. I understand. So, I just don't want to go down the path of, what happened in 22, 23. And I'm not here to disparage anybody at all, including, Ms. Balcom. That just doesn't get me anywhere. It doesn't get us anywhere. I want to be forward thinking, and I think that's just the right way to do it. And I love you. You're a great guy.
But they found out that they can't take over. But they even had an item that they took back because I think they finally figured out that they can't take it over.
Well, let's see what happens on Tuesday, right? Hope and prayer. It's the best thing we got in our arsenal.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think that's why they did what they did. But the only trouble is they really don't. They have no plan whatsoever. If they do, they've never told us. Yeah. And I'd love to find out what it is, because if they can save us a lot of money, I'm all for it.
Yes, sir.
But I don't see it. Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
That's my point.
You're buying my hot chocolate on Monday now. I don't actually drink coffee. Are we all good? I think we've done good tonight. I think we've got a lot of questions answered. So, it's 7:20. I think we'll end it now for the public part of it. If you want, I'll stick around for about 10 or 15 more minutes if you want to come up and just talk to me one-on-one on some things. But I think we've got a good gist of where we're at. I think the council members that were here and hopefully the ones watching at home and also to the people at home, if you have any questions, mayor at McLendon-Chisholm.com. And with that, it is 7:23, and we'll call it a night. Thanks for everyone coming.